Matt LaFleur might not like the conversation about wide receiver ones, but Jayden Reed is the Packers wide receiver one, and he is a star.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You were Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Jayden Reed is a star, and this discussion started last year. In the middle of the year, things were not looking great for the Packers. And we're going to talk about some of the similarities between the 2023 Packers and this current version of the Packers. But it was the middle of last year, around this time actually. Week 5 started with the Vikings game, I think. And after that, where you go, okay, this is special. This is special. He is the same yards per route run right now as Justin Jefferson, tied for third in the league, a top 5 receiver in yards on a per catch basis. We're talking about a guy averaging almost 20 yards per catch through a quarter of the season. 19.8 yards per catch. 20 yards a pop when he makes a catch. He is a vertical separator, a my ball player. We saw him go up and make a number of contested catches. Romeo Doubs is 6'1". I don't know exactly what he weighs, but I think it was over 200 pounds in the pre-draft process. Jayden Reed, not that. 5'10 and change, 195. But it's a contested catch for a touchdown. The big play over Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith is much bigger than Jayden Reed. My ball mentality, ball winner. He is second in the league in yards per target. He has been an all-pro through the first month of the season. An all-pro. And in the games where they're actually throwing, the games with Jordan Love, he's been the guy in this offense, creating big plays. And then when the Packers needed it against the Colts, and they're going, okay, what are we going to do? We got to scheme up some stuff. We got to just make this all work. The key figure in that week 1 game, I know we talked a lot about Malik Willis. The key figure is Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed, just his ability to walk into, hey, guess what? You're going to do a million other things. You're going to play running back essentially in this game. 2 carries, 37 yards, a couple specials. They designed a game plan around his ability to play. And it wasn't just because he only had the 2 carries, but it was the pre-snap motion, the orbit motion. It was playing in the backfield. It was lead blocking on plays at times. And then the second week with Malik Willis, who got the first target of the game? Who did they design that touch for? Christian Watson was healthy in that game. Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks. Everyone's healthy. Who did they scheme up the very first touch? Jayden Reed. Who led the team in targets against the Titans with Malik Willis at quarterback? Jayden Reed. He's had an explosive pass in all of these games. Or an explosive play. I guess he had an explosive run against the Colts. He's 17 of 22 targets this year, 336 yards and 2 touchdowns, 10 first downs on 17 catches, plus the touchdown. He's on pace for a 1,400-yard season. I said before the year, we could see a Jordy Nelson-like performance from Christian Watson this year, where it's not a ton of targets, but the yards are crazy. And that's kind of the current pace that Jayden Reed is on. He is their big play guy. He is eating up zone coverage. They're designing plays for him to get open in zone coverage. Now, they're not running their staple concepts, the Yankees and the daggers. They're not running those with him. It's the second reaction plays. It's when Jordan Love, on that last drive, they go 90 yards in a minute. The two big plays on that drive, in addition to the touchdown, are Jayden Reed is uncovered and Love just dots him up. Just catch fire. And then it's a second reaction play. Jordan Love breaks the pocket, and Jayden Reed, who actually I thought was open initially, breaks it upfield, and Love says, I'm just going to see if Jayden Reed can go win this ball. And he does. There's nothing that this offense is going to ask him to do that he can't do. Now, if he can't play as a boundary receiver, that hurts, his fantasy football value. I don't care about that. On 3rd and 8, he's going to be out there. On 3rd and 6, he's going to be out there. In the red zone, they're going to find a way for him to be out there. And Matt LaFleur has proven, hey, even if it's a 2-receiver set, if it's heavy, if it's quote unquote heavy personnel because there's 2 guys in the backfield, one of them is probably going to be Jayden Reed. Like, you're not going to put Emmanuel Wilson and Josh Jacobs back there. You're going to put Reed back there because of his ability to make plays with the ball in his hands. He can run routes. He can win at the catch point. He can win vertically, and he can win just manufactured touch game. That's everything you want in a wide receiver 1. He does not come in the traditional Green Bay Packers wide receiver 1 packaging. Doesn't look like Greg Jennings, doesn't look like Devontae Adams, doesn't look like Jordy Nelson, doesn't look or play really like those guys. He is basically like if the 2014 Packers didn't have Jordy Nelson on it, and Randall Cobb needed to get 100 targets in this offense. And by the way, Randall Cobb, I believe, was a Pro Bowler in 2014. Was outstanding when that was the role. Play from the slot. He was one of the best receivers in the league, one of the top probably 15 receivers. Well, right now, Jayden Reed is one of the 5 to 8 best receivers this year through a month. Like, let's not go crazy. Like, if you're going to make the list, okay, Tyreek, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, or whatever 4 guys you want to put. Yeah, no, he's probably not as good as those guys right now. But this year, in terms of productivity and what he's meant to his team, I don't know that you can put too many guys ahead of Jayden Reed, and they just let him be the guy now. He just is the engine of their passing game along with Jordan Love. And I think once Jordan Love gets back and gets acclimated here, and it's, Matt LaFleur talked about it. Hey, he's working through some of this stuff. The accuracy wasn't necessarily there, but he worked his way through it. It was much better in the second half when he was more in a rhythm, seeing everything, seeing how the Vikings were attacking him, all that stuff. It was a coming out party last year in the second half. I think we lost that because it was Jordan Love's coming out party too. This first 4 games has been a testament to his value to this team, the versatility that he brings. He is a bona fide wide receiver 1, and the pieces fit so well around him. Without Christian Watson, we found out, it's going to be an ankle injury. Matt LaFleur would only commit to probably not going to play this week. Interesting that it was only the 1 week that he committed to. I think they want to avoid an IR stint if they can help it. But Jayden Reed can carry this passing game if they need him to. Now, there are shades of the 2023 Packers on this team right now, but there is one key difference. We'll talk about it next. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. We've talked about FanDuel on this show a lot. And you can get this NFL season really, really kicked off, even though the new kickoff rules are not the best, with big return with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You get the little live updates. It's like looking in any of the other, the apps that you might use to check scores. You can actually just go check the scores right in the FanDuel app, and maybe that gives you an idea. Oh, the live line is that? That's interesting. Like I told you yesterday, I won on a live line with the Giants. +5.5. Cowboys win by 5. I win money. And you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Don't even have to win it. Just place it. $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. I understand the impulse to compare this year with 2023. The inconsistency of Jordan Love. Understanding, he played one game on an ice rink and then another game with a still injured MCL with a knee that he did not, at least, I don't know if he could not, but did not feel comfortable with for at least half the game. And there's the drops, the penalties, the inconsistencies on defense. But the biggest difference is the reason why it's more frustrating now than it was, in a way, last year at this time. And that's because we know that in there somewhere is a championship caliber team. We've seen it. We didn't know last year that Jordan Love could be a star. We know now. And I think that allows us to be more patient in understanding, hey, look, the accuracy stuff from the first 2 games that Jordan Love has played, let's not worry about it because, again, first one clearly was dealing with the turf, did not like the footing. That affected his ability to make consistent throws. And then the knee. The knee is going to get better. He's going to get back in the flow. I thought by the second half, he did that. He was seeing the field cleanly, being decisive about when he was going to break the pocket, just said, forget the knee. I'm just going to go play. And that was key for him. We know Jordan Love at his best is an elite quarterback. We know Matt LaFleur at his best, and he's already shown it in the last month, but we weren't sure. I was on this show telling you, hey, look, trust Matt LaFleur. The infrastructure is here. He'd always deserved more credit than he was given for what he did with Aaron Rodgers and those teams. And in retrospect, clearly deserved a ton of credit for what happened last year. Clearly deserves major kudos for this team winning 2 games without Jordan Love and the adjustments that they were able to make and the game plans. And even in this last game, they lose, but they're down 28-0. Did you see the Texans play the Vikings? Do you know how that game ended? That game ended with an ass kicking. That's it. It was over. It was over, and then it was over. This game was over, and then it wasn't. And that's a credit to the Packers for fighting back. It's a credit to Matt LaFleur. We didn't know last year that they were capable of doing that. We saw eventually that they were able to do it. We saw them, 3-6. They fight and claw and scratch their way back into the postseason. We didn't know when they were sitting there losing games and when we can't rewrite history. When there were Drake May edits on the timeline. I would like to let the record reflect, and everydayers know this, people that follow me on Twitter know this, that I was a Jayden Daniels guy, not a Drake May guy. Caleb was not even in the picture because I knew Caleb was going to go number 1, but I was a Jayden Daniels guy. Let the record reflect. But we didn't know that there was this whole other thing. We didn't know Dontavian Wicks. We didn't know Jayden Reed could be this. We didn't know what Matt LaFleur could do on the fly. We didn't know Rasheed Walker could be a really good player. We didn't know Zach Tom. We had a feeling. We didn't know Zach Tom could be an all-pro caliber player. He's been an all-pro right tackle this year. If you just forego like offensive tackles, because usually these left tackles go, if you go left tackle, right tackle, It's him and Lane Johnson. They're the best right tackles in the league right now, and I think they're in a tier by themselves. That's how good Zach Tom is. We knew he had potential. We didn't know he could be this. And there's a difference there. And so for whatever misgivings you have and for whatever concerns you have about the penalties, we know now what's there. We're not projecting. We're not wish casting, which is what it felt like at times last year. We know this team is good enough. We know that. And we know that because guys like Xavier McKinney have come in and immediately contributed. Javon Bullard has come in and immediately contributed. Josh Jacobs has come in and immediately contributed. And been every bit as good as the Packers were getting, certainly from their running backs at this point last year, but every bit as good as Aaron Jones. And if he gives them 15, 16, 17 games of this level play, that will be an exchange that you make again because of what you're getting in some certainty. Emmanuel Wilson has come back a better player. Tucker Kraft is a better player. You're getting the best version of Jair Alexander. Please stay on the field, Jair Alexander. You have Eric Stokes healthy, which, look, when he's your cornerback 1, that doesn't look as good. But when he's your cornerback 2, 2.5, when you have Carrington, Valentine, and Stokes, and you can do those things, looks a lot better. So we have a different perspective now because we know what it can be. Now, there's also some underperforming pieces of this offense. Rasheed Walker has not played as well as he did at the end of last year. That's penalties. That's some issues with pass protection. Now, he's faced some really good pass rushes early on, but if you want to go win a Super Bowl, you're going to probably have to play the 49ers. You're probably going to have to see the Eagles again. You may have to see the Buccaneers and all the blitzes that they want to bring. You're probably going to see this Vikings team again. Maybe Seattle and their ability to get creative when they want to, when it's Mike McDonald over there calling the plays, or at least Mike McDonald as the architect of that defense. Certainly there are things where you're going, these areas are underperforming. But like the linebackers were not very good last year. They played decent against the Vikings. You need more there. We don't know that they can get better, but they did at least add pieces there. We look, the safeties are objectively better by a lot. We don't know what Jeff Hafley can bring to bear here, though the Packers are a top 10 defense by EPA per play right now. Part of that is interceptions, fumbles, turnovers, but this is a defense that is designed to create turnovers. They're designed to invite the variance. We've been talking about this since before the season started. They were designed to create variance, or at least to invite variance, to say, look, we'll give up some plays if it means we can create some plays for ourselves. And they've been doing that. We haven't even seen some of the other, Quay Walker drops an interception right to him. Isaiah McDuffie drops an interception right to him. There are more plays out there. Javon Bullard is going to get 2, 3, 4 at some point this season. Jair Alexander is probably going to get 3 or 4 more. Teams might stop throwing at him. Because why? You throw Carrington, Valentine, Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon. Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon, Corey Valentine not up to the task this last game. That's to be expected in a lot of ways. Now, this all applies to the defense. And in particular, the defensive line. We've seen this defensive line be really, really good. But right now, they're not. What's going on? That's next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Gametime makes it easier for you to find the tickets that you want because they filter out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They call it Gametime Picks. That helps you curate your experience in the Gametime app. It makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Plus, you get panoramic views from your seats in the app before you buy. Plus, with their low price guarantee, if you find a ticket in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go find Locked On NFL, now with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. And then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. This season, Rashawn Gary has a 3% pass rush win rate. 3%. 3%. Last year, it was 16%. In 2022, when he was outstanding, 17.3%. That's from our friend Zach Cruz over at Packers Wire. It's not enough. It's just not enough. He has not looked decisive. He has not looked powerful. He's getting blocked by tight ends. And I don't know if it's that he's thinking too much. If he's not totally comfortable with what he's being asked to do. I don't think he just suddenly forgot how to play football. I don't think he got paid, for example, and is like, I don't need to play hard anymore. I don't think that's in his DNA. Especially when he is a player who is trying to build a business. He's trying to build a business empire. It's not about this one paycheck. It's about getting paid again. It's about creating generational wealth and money that you can invest in projects that he's passionate about. Like he wants to build a business, a brand. And by the way, I'm not the kind of person that's like, he's not focused on football because of that. No, this is a guy who works his tail off. Matt LaFleur was asked about this yesterday. And he mentioned that they're trying to be more disciplined in their gaps, their lanes, their pass rush lanes. And so guys are not flying off the ball the way that maybe they were in training camp. He mentioned that there's some sacrifice with guys where it's a game here where you are essentially a pick player as a defensive lineman, where you're coming across the formation to take out a blocker so that you can loop in another blocker and get someone free behind. I spoke with a league source about this. And they told me after watching Packers-Vikings that they felt like the Packers were using too much movement up front, too many games, too many twists, not just letting guys go one-on-one eat. Now, in the case of Rashawn Gary, they have been doing things we've talked about, overloading a side, 3 guys to a side, 1 guy opposite, where you can't get slide protection. Now, the Vikings did a really good job of just wadding it up. You get a chip or you have a tight end, and they're getting a double on, let's say, Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary, and they're leaving the other guys to try and beat them. That is a thing that's happening. And like something like ESPN's double team rate, you have to be engaged. I believe it's like for 0.8 seconds. So if you just get a shove, that doesn't count. Or if, you put a tight end to that side just so, Rashawn Gary has to widen his alignment and then work through something on his way to the blocker. Those are ways that you can complicate these things for a pass rusher. This is not just Kenny Clark, not just Rashawn Gary. This is Kenny Clark too. This is Carl Brooks, who started, by the way, once Devontae Wyatt went out and he went in, he just got to work. And I don't know what they were waiting for. I don't really understand why he has not been a bigger part of what they've been doing, especially with Kenny Clark not having as many opportunities. And I think part of that is they're asking Kenny to eat blocks. Hey, we need you going this way, essentially occupying 2 because we know you're going to draw attention so that this other guy can get in behind. One of the Lucas Van Ness pressures comes off a game where he comes from the outside and you get a free runner at the quarterback. Like, these are things that can work. But it is also the kind of thing that you do when you don't have the horses. The Packers theoretically do. This is a team that last year, their 4-man front created a top 10 pressure rate. In fact, depending on the numbers you look at, they were, I believe, a top 5 pressure rate team with a 4-man rush. Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark didn't just forget how to play football. Preston Smith has actually been pretty good. Kingsley Enagbare has made some plays. Yes, they did eat up a bad Tennessee Titans front. They created some pressure against Sam Darnold. It wasn't just schemed up stuff. Sam Darnold was able to escape pressure a couple times. They've got guys doing some things, making some plays. Their best players have not shown up. But that's the thing about having best players. We know those guys are good. So there wasn't really a time last year. I mean, Rashawn Gary, middle end of the season, he wore down. Don't forget how Rashawn Gary started last season coming off ACL. Shot out of a cannon. Playing like 16 snaps and is getting 5 pressures in those 60 because he's playing only passing downs. Like, he was unbelievable last year. Kenny Clark had his best sack season of his career last year. Last year. I understand people panicking about the pass rush. I think this is Jeff Hafley experimenting. I think this is Jeff Hafley settling in. And I think this is a couple guys who are used to playing a certain way, having to play another way. Kenny Clark talked about this with Chris Long. It's been an adjustment for him. And I think he needs more opportunities to just go one-on-one against this guy. Let the other guys run the games. I mean, I understand you can't be quite that predictable, but like, just let Kenny Clark go MF a guard or a center. He can do it. We know he can do it. We've seen him do it. This isn't like with Quay Walker or Edgerrin Cooper even, someone who I like, and you're going to go, okay, well, they can do this. Let's give them more opportunities to do these things, and it'll get better. No, you're projecting. You're prognosticating. You're predicting. You're expecting. You're estimating. We don't have to do that with Kenny Clark or Rashawn Gary. We know what they are. And you don't have to think that they are world beaters. Maybe they're not. Kenny Clark is not Chris Long, or excuse me, Chris Jones or Dexter Lawrence. Rashawn Gary is not Nick Bosa. He's not Myles Garrett. He's not TJ Watt. But he's a really good football player, and so is Kenny Clark. And I'm just going to fall back on, I've seen them be really good. This is the 2023 case. Like, we hadn't seen the 2023 offense be good. Now we have. We know they're good. I know what Rashawn Gary is. I know what Kenny Clark is. And I know what I expect them to continue to be. So I'm not worried about this defense. I think it's fair to say they have not played to the standard. Matt LaFleur said that. They haven't. But again, I'm going to fall back on what I've seen from them over the courses of their careers. And we're talking about multiple years. We're not talking about just like a Nick Perry 13 sack season one time and then he's hurt the rest of the... No. Going back to 2021, even early in 2020, when Rashawn Gary was a rookie, there was flashes. Like this is not Lucas Van Ness. Oh, hey, we think he can be. No, we've seen it. We've seen it. Rashawn Gary was excellent in 2021. Was really good until he got hurt in 2022. And then in 2023, shot out of a cannon until he wore down and was not quite as impactful at the end of last year. He's off to a slow start this year. A 3% win rate, that's not going to last. 5x below what he was. Come on. He didn't just forget how to rush the passer. This is going to turn for him. It's going to turn for Kenny Clark. And this defense, when the pass rush shows up, I think this defense has a chance to take off, even with some of the issues at linebacker. All right, back tomorrow. Lily Zhao on the program. She's with us. For Zhao, you doing? We're going to have a crossover Thursday. I don't know why I channeled Pat McAfee there, but I did. Just in my brain. Just in my brain. Shout out to Pat, I guess, for just being in my brain. And then an interview hopefully coming on Friday. We're working on that. I will be in LA this weekend. If you're going to be there, let me know. Let me know. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. On Instagram, Locked On Packers. On TikTok, Locked On Packers. Wherever you get podcasts, go subscribe to us on YouTube so you can stay Locked On Packers.